So in this video, I'm going to be looking at some of the other themes that I haven't already mentioned in terms of this annular solar eclipse happening on the 2nd of October 2024. One of the problems that I have in determining what to put in and when to put it in is the fact that, you know, when I'm doing forecasts, you know, all the different pieces of the puzzle fit together. You know, you can examine one piece of the entire puzzle, but it still fits into other pieces. And so, you know, in doing a full month ahead overview or a week ahead overview, in fact, an eclipse overview that I started last month, you know, I've been mentioning the annular solar eclipse for a while, on and off. I even recorded something about it back in February or March time, you know, when I was recording an eclipse forecast for all of these eclipses in 2024. But here's the thing, you know, every time I do go back and look at a chart, I always see something new. I've always experienced that. And I think you can always take a fresh look at the chart. You know, you can always put in asteroids into a chart if you're wanting to, like, for instance, if you're working with somebody and you've looked at their chart really, really fully, but all of a sudden they want to ask about, I don't know, a particular person, you could put in an asteroid to represent that person with the name. You know, there are so many different ways of cracking open a chart. And in this session or this video, I'm going to be looking at asteroids and trans-Neptunian objects. In fact, there are two, or are they dwarfs? I'm not entirely sure, actually. I'll tell you in a sec. I'll show you. But I'm adding in some extra context to this reading. So, yeah, you know, in looking at this today, hopefully you'll get some more info about it if you're interested in the eclipse and how you might flow with the energy of it and what you might consider. I have mentioned previously that this is the last eclipse of this year, and the next one doesn't start until mid-March 2025. So you could assume that the degree that this is at, which is 10 degrees in the sign of Libra, is a critical degree for the next 6 months. So it is, I think, worth just having another deep dive. Now, I'm hoping I'm not going to repeat myself too much because that would be awful for you and disastrous for my energy management. But here are the other two places where I have mentioned the eclipse in different ways. This video here that I released a couple of days ago, this is the forecast for the week ahead. And I think I've called it something like magical manifestations, because I really see that we are on a pretty cool design trajectory in this week ahead, where there's a lot of upliftment possibilities. You know, we are being kind of shaken awake a little bit, you know, to consider energies from a whole new perspective. You know, this is a very, very strong eclipse as far as I can see. So I've spoken about, I've given you a sign by sign forecast for this week ahead, which obviously involves this eclipse, this annular solar eclipse. And I've mentioned it briefly in the October planetary picture, which is giving you quite a good understanding of the whole of the energy for October on a week by week basis, not really focusing on the moon so much there, you know, on the individual movements of the moon, but on the bigger planetary alignments. And of course, the eclipse will fit into those bigger planetary alignments. In this one, then, I just want to examine what it means for you in general. It's a new moon in Libra. And so because it's related to Libra, obviously Venus has a bit of a theme going on there. You know, there's themes of peace and harmony, how we can come together in partnership, how we can come into some form of agreement. Because of the Venus energy, I also think it has something to do with beauty and popularity, and kindness and graciousness and cordiality. But it's also about balance. And I also think there is a nod to the law. And, you know, getting the scales of justice right, you know, looking at everything with a kindness and a fairness. You know, Libra is very fair as far as I can see. And it also does want to keep up with appearances, which is kind of interesting. You know, how can you keep up appearances whilst also being fair and not being swayed either side? It's a really sort of interesting, like, sort of new feel for what Libra represents in your charts. Now, if you know where 10 degrees Libra is in your particular chart, that would be really, really beneficial, because you could look at it from the perspective of, I see the sun and moon are here right now. And for instance, in my chart, it's right on my Pluto. In my husband's chart, it's right on his Mars. It might be on one of your angles. It might be around the time of your birth, in which case it's on your sun. So, this will be adding a new start to the planet in your chart. It will be kind of recoding it, sort of putting an overlay of something on it. I don't know technically how it happens, but how I intuit this energy is that the new start energy of fairness and balance is coming in, and it could bring in a level of glamour. I think Librans are fairly glamorous in a kind of classical and also beautiful way. Yeah, so I always think, ask yourself, what's it touching in terms of planets and angles, nodes, for instance. Also, look at which house it's in. So examine what that house means. So for instance, mine is showing up in my 11th house, which is absolutely highlighting things about connections and networks, global visions, global plans, how I might be doing something on a more global basis, and also about my friendships, just in general. This is, I think, a bit of a new start. Now, I also think it's worth considering the last time that there was an annular solar eclipse. Now, every year you could look back to look at where the new moon was in Libra, and it should nearly always be in roughly the same part of your chart. Because for instance, my Libra is up here around my 11th, so any new moon is going to be in this part of my chart. But again, each time the sun and the moon are coming into your chart, you want to think back, like, what was I doing at this time? What comes up for me at this time? And that might give you a clue. Now, I've had a look back in history books, and I've gone back to see when the last solar eclipse was in the sign of Libra, or, like, where were they in recent times? Now, obviously, what makes it an eclipse is the proximity to the nodes. We're looking at the annular solar eclipse, which is associated with the south node. And so there were two that happened, in the last time that the south node was coming into Libra. So this is actually the last time when the nodes were sort of in this area. It just so happens that at this time in 2004, the nodes were across Taurus and Scorpio and about to transition into Aries and Libra. So you'll see there that the particular solar eclipse was happening at 21 degrees in the sign of Libra. The following year, however, we've got an exact match pretty much. There was an annular solar eclipse on the 3rd of October. Obviously, this one is on the 2nd of October. That's in 2005. So this is at 10 degrees, and our one is at 10 degrees. So this is kind of interesting, isn't it? I'm trying to cast my mind back to what I was doing in 2005. In fact, I'd rather not say what I was doing in 2005. I was going through quite some big changes, actually. Where were you around October 2005? That might give you an idea as to how you might be using this energy, or what new starts you were creating for yourself. At that time, I definitely was becoming a lot more social and reaching out and creating more networks. So that really fits my picture. So anyway, we've got this one, and our sun and moon as of tomorrow on the 2nd of October are at 10 degrees. I've seen it reported at 10 degrees 04 and also 10 degrees 03. I think because it's 10 degrees 04 and then like 50 something, a bit like when you're counting up with hours, minutes and seconds, the seconds are just coming up the other side, pushing it over. So, I'm saying 10, 03, 04 in the sign of Libra. I don't think we have to be too specific. So like, where is it in your chart? Where is it bringing about a sense of a new agreement, a new way of being, a new way to find peace and harmony, a new way to find balance, maybe a way to get final justice on something, to get a final reckoning, like a balance. Now, in particular with this one, we've got some, we have some particular themes going on. Now, this one is in a conjunction with Mercury. Now, Mercury is has just come out of the Cazimi, so is actually combust. And is not functioning so well at the time of this particular eclipse. So Mercury isn't high on rationality, which is his preferred way of being. So, your Mercury function, the way you're thinking and perceiving things is much more likely to be in little pieces of information, intuitive bits of information. I would say visually, because, we're talking about an air sign, and an air sign is about light. So we might be perceiving things in light language, in light ways. We might be noticing pictures and images and little flashes of things. So I'm also thinking like clairaudience, clairvoyance, sentience could be really, really strong, seeing as our rationality, our usual rationality and levels of rationality are not so strong. I've really struggled recording, I have to say. Today I've done so many false starts on all sorts of different things today. So I don't know where your mind is and how that's working for you. But so yeah, this new moon, this solar eclipse, it might be setting the scene for a whole new way of thinking. So, obviously right now Mercury's combust, but the sort of energy that the stamp of energy that this critical degree is containing, at the time of this eclipse, there is this picture that is emerging that could carry us all the way through to the next eclipse in March 2025. So are we going to be coming into this more intuitive time and space? Are we going to be perceiving light in a new way? I have to say, light is my new thing that I'm absolutely fascinated by at the moment, and reading a lot of books about light healing, vibration, etc., etc. So, are we going to be making changes? And Mercury as well is also associated with healing. So yeah, it might be worth exploring your own versions of healing from different perspectives, from new perspectives, and in terms of light waves or frequencies. Now, usually when I'm talking about frequencies, I'm more thinking in terms of Uranus. But if you think about it, Uranus and Mercury are high. Like, one is the very sort of human-based perception and like reasoning and talking and the written word, and Uranus is the higher functioning energy of communication and thinking things through. So there is a kind of resonance there anyway. I do think Mercury with different particular aspects, in particular in a conjunction with the moon, can make you very, very talkative. So we might be talking a lot more about intuition, but the moon and thinking, when it comes together, is really, I think, emphasizing flashes of insight and intuition, and a whole new way of being with that. So I think that's kind of interesting. It's also obviously, because this eclipse is in a conjunction with the south node, it is by default in opposition to the north node. And so at some level, I also think this is representing us holding back a minute. In the north node, I think we've got the direction of what we're learning, the sort of karmic hold, or the karmic pattern or story that we always seem to come back to. And of course, we're not looking at your north node and south node. We're looking at where it is right now, the transiting north node. So this is the collective journey of where we're going, and the collective journey of where we're coming from in respect to the south node. So, this is also suggesting to me that with this eclipse is coming an almost standstill, where we're saying, hang on a second, are we really wanting to go down this story, to go down this path that we've held on to for a long time, and yet we always seem to go round and round and round in circles with? or is there something new for us to perceive? Now, I also recognize that we're not staying in the past, because, you know, the node is moving in this direction and the sun and the moon for sure are moving in this direction. So we are moving away from the past, but we're also disconnected from the future. So where are we? Are we out of time? Are we kind of stepping off the timeline for a moment and just reviewing? So, you know, from that perspective, I also think we're given the opportunity to view our life and our relationship to the world and each other from a whole new perspective. So, you know, if we're going about our daily business, you know, in the same way as ever, the chances are we're just going to have the same thoughts again and again and again. But to me, this feels like we're stepping outside of our routine for a moment or two, you know, that things are happening around us right now that are giving us the wherewithal or the questions or the curiosity to wonder, what is this all about? And it just so happens, you know, next week, as I explained in the October forecast, you know, that we are almost at the maximum of retrograde planets for this year. And it does feel also like there is this need to internalize things. So this is a particularly internalized and light eclipse, and yet social ideas are coming up. So we are internalizing our ideas and thoughts about how we are in a social world. So really lots of things to consider, and the kind of things that you can't really consider when you're just in the throes of life and right in the middle of it. You know, sometimes we have to step out to really see who we are and what we're relating to. So I really see that. Now, the next thing that really stuns me about this, and I haven't mentioned this before, I don't think, is the fact that this eclipse is exactly pretty much within a degree, but it's in a very tight square to Ceres. And so Ceres represents the mum, the cosmic mum, the earth mum. Like so we say Mother Earth. She's also known as Demeter in mythology. And Ceres is aware of the cycles of life, the natural cycles, the natural beginnings and the natural endings. You know, everything has a beginning and an end. And without sounding like I'm taking on a massive story, you know, Ceres is about getting into nature, into the natural rhythms. But the fact that we've got the square is, are we being challenged to get into the natural rhythms? Are we being challenged to consider that we are a guest here on Earth? You know, like sometimes I think we walk around like we own the Earth, when in fact, like the Earth is almost like where we're all staying at the moment. And so it's a bit of a perception shift, but the relationship between us and Earth feels a little bit stressed out. And how can we reconnect? And so this is all to me also telling me that we are connecting to our roots as well, because we have grown out of connection with our roots. So, you know, if you're not feeling very rooted right now, this could come up as a really big theme for you. So how can we root more? And how can we sow more? You know, how can we be in a position where we are doing things to contribute to the world and also playing a part in sharing the harvest of the world? You know, because Ceres is absolutely about the harvest. You know, she's and her daughter Proserpina, or Persephone, is like the goddess of cereal. You know, like there's all these references to her in those respects, like the fertility, the fecundity, the sheer abundance of nature. You know, so I also think that's something else to consider with Ceres, is if the conditions are right, everything's abundant. If the conditions are out of natural law, there is no abundance, or abundance for some, but not for everyone. Whereas, you know, when we are looking at natural laws, there is abundance everywhere you look. You know, if the conditions are right for a plant, it will produce seed, and it will continue to produce seed and continue to produce offspring. Which brings me to another point about this. Ceres is the mum, so it's not just about nature, Mother Nature, and sowing seeds for the future, but also being part of the the sharing of what is produced. But there is also the idea of birthing. She's the mum. So what are we doing with our children right now? Have we grown apart from our children? These are really big questions, given that there is this blooming great big square between, what this eclipse is representing. And I think, with the sun and the moon together, it's like the ego and the psyche, the male and the female within us, the light and the dark within us. It is the all. I mean, if you're looking at like the idea of a yin and yang, like the whole balance of light and dark is contained within that symbol. Like this is the entirety of us. And, where have we become separated from our ability to naturally parent or feel like parents? Because I also feel that people who aren't actual physical parents are still, we all kind of have a responsibility to each other. Now, that doesn't mean to say I agree that the state has more of a claim to my children than I do, and I'll fight them on that for sure. I don't think anything should really come between the bond between a loving parent and their child, who is absolutely working for the absolute best of their child, to make sure their child thrives. I'm so worried about how I say things in case I phrase things in the wrong way and get jumped on by somebody who's offended by talking about, being a nice parent. But we are coming into a time to consider our relationships. And this also goes the other way. So we're all children as well, and in the same way as some of us aren't physical parents, some of us are children who've lost our parents. And some of us are children who have parents, and some of us are children who've decided we don't want anything to do with our parents anymore. But again, where's the relationship between us and the mum? There is a strain. So I think this eclipse is going to really bring our priorities back into clear focus. In terms of life and living, and of course, I also don't want to forget Venus, because Venus rules Libra as well as Taurus. But Venus is exactly in a sextile to Ceres, and she's also in an exact sextile to Mercury, semi-sextile, sorry, and she's in a semi-sextile to the sun and the moon. So she's also kind of working with this. There's a beautiful flow. This is very feminine, in fact. This has got a really beautiful femininity about it. In the sign of Libra, which traditionally is a male sign. All the fire and air signs are the male signs, and the earth and water are traditionally the female signs. But Libra is very much about appearances and graciousness and partnership, which is more of the feminine than the sort of deeply masculine Aries sign. So I think this is really highlighting things for women, and what we're choosing for ourselves and how we are in the world. So yeah, I see this as being coming back into a sense of natural order, given that we've got Ceres and Venus flowing so beautifully with this new moon annular solar eclipse energy. But this is also interesting as well. Mars is in a square to this and in an opposition to Ceres. And to me, it feels like they're in each other's signs, even though they're not. Like Mars isn't anything to do with Capricorn. But if you think of the Mars energy, which is more go-getting and absolutely wanting to go on a individual journey, the sign of Capricorn is fairly independent and really wanting to progress. And then Ceres, about motherhood, would be so much happier in the sign of Cancer, which is absolutely about life and motherhood and that sharing energy. So it's kind of interesting that Ceres is showing up in Capricorn, which is like the sign of big business and governments and like these huge kind of the corporatocracy, and also like where everybody's a number and not really a name. And then Mars, I think in the sign of Cancer, is almost like a boy a boy with mummy issues, or us with mummy issues, you know, or we're needing our mummy, and we need someone to protect us, maybe, and maybe Mars, or the sort of inner part of us, is standing strong to protect our mummy. You know, I really get this you know, I can't believe I'm saying mummy, but it's because I'm talking about it from the perspective of a little boy and his relationship to his mother, you know, in the sign of Cancer. But, you know, what really comes up for me as I see Mars in Cancer, and I've said this, you know, in one of the weekly forecasts I did a while ago, when Mars actually went into Cancer, you know, Mars shows us what we might stand for and what we might really want to stand strong, like really like fight for. Like I'm thinking about, you know, a lyric in Go With the Flow by Queens of the Stone Age, and they say, I want something good to fight for, to make it beautiful to live. I love that band. So yeah, Mars in the sign of Cancer, you know, he wants something beautiful to fight for and to stand for. And, you know, there is something deeply protective about Mars in the sign of Cancer, like protecting innocence, protecting life, protecting people. And so that's in opposition. Now, this is interesting as well, because Ceres in the sign of Capricorn could be the story about managing motherhood from a much bigger scale. I mean, to me, this is really kind of spelling out Roe v Wade, you know, like the idea of big business or big ideas managing how motherhood might be experienced. And yet there's an energy here that's saying, hang on a sec, you don't manage motherhood. Like, motherhood is a natural process. So to me, it feels like there's a lot of things going on. And the fact that this new moon and eclipse is square these two, you know, in a place of balance, in a place of law, and that Venus is involved, really showing us like the femininity. I really think that this solar eclipse is going to, you know, over the next 6 months, really bring back the Roe v Wade into the, you know, to the public's attention and awareness. I think something big is going to come from that in terms of this. But, you know, that's outside of this. You know, I wasn't really going down this route at all. But as I started looking at the chart and talking about it, that's what's come out. But, you know, I think this is the archetype of us. You know, like, where is this going in your chart right now? And what do you want to protect? What is beautiful? You know, what story? You know, where are you wanting something beautiful to die for, to make it beautiful to live? Thank you, Queens of the Stone Age. And where are you trying to manage the natural process of life? You know, are you trying too hard to manage life? Or are there some really great like tools out there to help you manage the difficulties of life? You know, so I think there are some really big themes coming on. Stepping away from motherhood and all of that, because and you know, I should also apologize, it's not about motherhood as well, it could be about parenthood. You know, let's consider fathers too. So there's also the perspective of which is also happening at the same time, and Venus is aligned to this, but there is the grand trine. Oh my goodness. And there again is the story of like this is interesting. Like Venus, the you know, the female, Mars, the male, and then Saturn as new laws. It could also be the parent, the structure, the framework. So there could also be something coming from this eclipse that will bring about new ideas about what it is to be male and what it is to be female. And everything that fits in between, you know, and sorry to say, and everything that fits in between, because if you are identifying with somebody like, oh, she said everything that fits in between, how disrespectful. I don't mean it like that, please forgive me. But, you know, the flowing energy of trines, to me, they don't have hard edges. That's how I see it. You know, yes, we've got these corners, but actually when I perceive the trine energy, it's about the flow between things. So I think we are in, oh, and of course, Ceres is also heading this up. It also turns into a kite. So I do think, you know, all the big questions about what we're doing here, where we come from, motherhood, fatherhood, what it is to be us right now in 2024, I think they're all going to really start to come to a head. And this eclipse is opening that doorway to that. Didn't think it was going to go there. So like I said earlier, every 2 weeks with the new moon and the full moon, I look at the asteroids or trans-Neptunian objects or dwarf planets or Uranian points, whatever is showing up in the chart. I use serenu.com, www.serennu.com, and you can do a search for your particular chart, and it will bring up, I think, up to 1,000 asteroids or points and show you where they are. Now, I always do a 90-degree search. So it brings up everything that is in a 90-degree or 180-degree angle from what I'm looking at. And I was really wanting to see what was interacting with the sun and the moon. And so I've got Salacia, I've got MakeMake, I don't know if it's pronounced that or if it's MakeMake or Marker, who knows, and Astraea as well. Now, I haven't really... I've read about these two in the past, but not really paid too much attention to them. They just haven't been on my periphery for quite some time. Astraea has come up quite a lot. I quite like Astraea. I like Astraea a lot. She feels right to me somehow. But anyway, Salacia is interesting. She's the consort of Neptune, so she's associated with oceans, but she's the goddess of salt water. She does her own thing. She's got her own timing. For instance, when I was looking up about her, it said she was a TNO, like a trans-Neptunian object, and also a dwarf planet. And, that she just has her own little pattern, but she's not rude with it. She does what she does. Her arrival brings sensitivity, graciousness. She's gentle. She's genuine. And she's faithful as well, so she's not one of these water nymphs that is hanging around with all the water gods. She's faithful to Neptune, but she's the goddess of salt water. And it's interesting that she's in a conjunction with the North Node to do with what we're learning about right now, what is coming up for humanity. I wish I wasn't making this connection, but of course right now we've got I think the 5th worst storm going on in the US, and it's, when I was looking it up, it's listed as a tropical cyclone. There's been lots of flooding from all the rainwater, and of course where's the rainwater coming from? So there's the idea of the body of water that does its own thing in its own time, in its own way, is really interesting. Now, obviously, it doesn't feel very gracious, gentle, or genuine. All this water that's been deposited and flooding vast parts of Carolina and Georgia, and obviously Florida's got quite a bit of it as well. However, I wonder, in terms of not about, the people in this disaster zone. I cannot imagine what's going on for them. And I've been in touch with my clients in that area to see how they're doing it and what they need and whatnot. So, this is huge. And I also recognize that water is absolutely about our soul, our emotions, the movement of our emotions. I was talking to somebody, a client recently, who mentioned that they had a water problem at home and they just moved into a home. And everywhere I go, when I'm moving into a home or moving out of the home, I have water issues like leaks, like taps and boilers and things like that. There's always something water related in terms of me moving. Whenever I'm not quite right, I get some kind of water event happening. So to me, not trying to justify what's going on or how it's happening. However, I notice that when there are big water things happening, there is a big change in consciousness. There is a big shift in consciousness. There is something very stirring, with the waters. We are comprised of water, obviously. So, and I really like the work of Veda Austin. She's got a great channel, and she does some really great experiments with water, and she talks about water as consciousness. So again, I think I'm not trying to diminish the state of emergency that's occurring currently, but I also think that when we've got these massive water issues, there is a change of consciousness going on, a real big change in consciousness. And this is showing up in opposition to the sun and the moon. Now, we've also got, I'm going to call him MakeMake. I really don't know how it's pronounced, but I'm just saying that if I got it wrong, let me know. If you know how it's meant to be pronounced, write it in the comments for me, please. I'd appreciate that. The energy of MakeMake, when I was looking that up from Astrograph, and there's loads and loads of information out there. You can just type in what you're looking for, MakeMake in astrology, astrological meaning, and you'll just get reams, because there's so many dedicated people writing about the discovery of dwarf planets and trans-Neptunians and different types of asteroids and whatnot. So MakeMake, dwarf planet, creator of humanity. This is a god from the Easter Islands. So there's an Easter Island tradition, and on Astrograph, if you do a search for him, you'll get the whole background about the rituals and the sort of yearly competition to find the strongest male warrior who will go and find, I realize I've spelt find wrong there, who will go on this really, really big quest into the water, up cliffs and down into a dark cave. And they're sent on this real ultimate mission to distinguish themselves as being a male warrior worthy of the ultimate wisdom, so that they can guide their people forwards. So this is really interesting. Other themes that come up is MakeMake is about the environmental wisdom, going into the dark interior of the psyche to find the profound truths of life. It's about natural law, natural process, and it's also about like humanity and fertility. So this is interesting, that we've got on one side of this eclipse, we've got the earth wisdom and the real strong earth energy, and on the other side we've got the water, we've got the male and we've got the female. And isn't that I think that's fascinating, because we've also got a Ceres theme, Ceres in an earth sign, and we've got this balance between male and female, and then Saturn to represent the laws around natural, like like the way that we are in the world right now. So to me, this eclipse at a much deeper level is bringing up so much about why we're here and what we're doing and what creation is and what creation isn't. So it's interesting that this eclipse is bringing forward, a rising, I think, of strong natural male wisdom, and also encouraging the gentleness of the female sensitivity. And again, forgive me for putting the genders on. That is just, Salacia is the consort, the lady consort of Neptune. This is just how these gods and goddesses in the mythology were written, and this is the male. Obviously, you can use this energy any way you want. Now, the last one that is coming up and is Astraea. Now, I love Astraea because she's about healing and purity, and she is all about fairness, and she stands for humanity. She really wants to see humanity rise up. She wants to see that humanity is not left behind. She was the last goddess or god or immortal being to leave Earth and take her place wherever they all go to. And so she didn't want to leave humans. She wanted to stay here to help with an awakening for humans. And so you know, part of this is there, you know, is she like leaving humans and kind of turning her back on them? She did as much as she could to help them, and now she's like, okay, enough. They're grown up now. They have to do the rest on their own. Like, it's now in your hands, human. That's the message I'm really getting. But she's about purity and fairness, precision and justice, as opposed to the idea of the decline of purity and the downfall of humanity. So again, really, really big themes coming up, you know, the idea that there is some kind of maybe pestilence versus the purity. Now, you know, I spoke with a client briefly today who described, you know, how Asheville's looking right now in is it Southern California, Carolina or Northern? I can't remember. But, you know, Asheville is completely like destroyed, looking war torn, you know, and then it's going to take years to get the power back to people and fresh water and stuff like that. You know, it is like it's been attacked in a war, you know, and of course it's very difficult to keep everything pure there, and things, you know, it's going to be really a tough wicket for people. So these are really, really strong themes. I should also say, when I was looking back at the last annular solar eclipse in the sign of Libra back in 2005, if I just go back then now, that was, and this might not be related, but, you know, Hurricane Katrina happened a month before that. Well, just a few days over a month, you know, around like 30 something days, you know, within just over a moon cycle of it, Hurricane Katrina happened. And this particular eclipse was also at 10 degrees. Now, is this coincidence? You know, it's a month's difference, but interesting that, you know, Hurricane Katrina is one of these storms that people remember. In fact, you know, when I was looking at Hurricane Helena, I realized, you know, in just doing a little search, that there already was a Hurricane Helena that was written in from 1958. So I wonder what Helena would say in a chart, and how the storm of 58 to now compare. Just, you know, from that sort of mindset of, I wonder what's going on. What are we learning right now? What's going on? So the last thing I want to mention then, and that's about the Sabian symbol. I did mention it in full in the week ahead forecast. You know, I totally went to town on that one. You know, the Sabian symbol for where the sun, the moon and MakeMake are is 11 of a Libra, and it's about seeing people for who they are. I'm paraphrasing the actual Sabian symbol was called a professor peering over his glasses at his students. You know, it's talking about the ability or necessity of looking at people not through the lens of something that we've learned, but from actually really seeing people in real life. And what occurs to me about what's going on right now is, you know, when there's a disaster, when something terrible is happening, that's when we remember who we are. You know, we drop the labels. We completely drop the labels. We absolutely reach out to people, human to human. You know, we don't care. This is why I absolutely trust humans. You know, because when things hit the fan, we come together. We don't fall apart. When things are really, really big and major, and you know, about survival, we remember who we are. You know, it's that remembrance. We are meant to be helping each other. We are meant to be connecting with each other. So this Sabian symbol, I think, gives me real hope for this next 6-month period. You know, I'm sure we're going to have some really big bust ups along the way, because, you know, these big, these TNOs or dwarf planets, boy, I mean, they are bringing in the male and the female, the water and the earth. And the mention of environmentalism is huge on that, you know, and also Astraea with justice and precision and purity and fairness. You know, and then this, you know, with Ceres, I think we're in for quite a ride. But I absolutely trust that, you know, what we are you know, the journey that we're on right now is to embrace each other, is to come back as people, is to reconnect, remember who we are, and to come into partnership. And of course, partnership is the overall aim of Libra. You know, it's all about partnership. So we are coming back together. So there you go. I hope you found that useful. I just want to say a quick shout out to the people that support this channel. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Lots of love to you then. Have a great eclipse, and catch you another time. Bye for now.